Welcome back, all my groovy people. How you guys doing today? We're going to talk about Night of Demons, the 1988 classic. I think it's a classic. I could be totally wrong about this movie being a classic, but I really like this movie. I saw it on Amazon. I'm like, you know what? Let's watch it. It looked like such a groovy cover. Like how they had it set up was like this girl with like a heart-shaped face because of like makeup, and I was like, let's check this out. And instead it's like a horror comedy, which I've noticed a lot of older 80s movies that were once horror are now more comedies too. Like they always say horror comedy even if they're not. Like American Werewolf in London is considered a horror comedy, and I kind of disagree with it. Like there's elements of comedy in it, but it's mostly horror. Doesn't really matter. So when I looked at it, I was like, all right, let's go. Now this is a horror comedy. There's a lot of good comedy scenes in this movie, and I did not expect that going into this movie. I honestly had no idea what the heck I was expecting. I read like the little synopsis of it and I was like, this actually sounds like a really fun movie. So I decided to sit down and watch it. It's just a bunch of high school kids going to a haunted house and partying up, and then you have the one random goth girl that's like, yo, you guys ever heard of this cool thing about talking to a mirror and bringing out demons? And everyone's like, yeah, let's do it. And it was like a Halloween party, so everyone went out there. She started doing some weird hippie things, and then all of a sudden, typical blonde, slutty blonde gets possessed, and you get to see some TNA, so there's that. But with that being said, she gets possessed, and she like rips her shirt off and starts put makeup all over herself.
Yeah, boy.
It's a very interesting thing. And then there's a scene where the goth girl gets possessed and she's just dancing and dancing. But the whole thing is just a really fun movie where these characters are all slowly getting possessed. They're not getting like possessed by like, oh, possessed. It's more of like they get bit and they die and then they turn to demons. A lot of high schools are getting like possessed. It's a very typical thing where you always have the main character that doesn't want to have sex or anything, so of course she is the final girl. Very typical. But I will say with this movie, I think the special effects and the prosthetics look really good, a lot better than I actually thought it would look. I was going into thinking, oh, this movie is probably not gonna be good, but it actually is really good. I mean, the plot's pretty simple. It's just a bunch of high schoolers going to a haunted house and demons are there. You have to spend the whole night there to like face the demons, and once the sun comes up, the demons get defeated. And throughout this whole movie, I was like, man, I don't even have like a favorite character, because early on you have this character named Roger. Spoilers, is my favorite character. Roger is definitely my favorite character. And Roger's like chilling out in the car and he's trying to figure out how to leave because obviously it's really creepy. And the whole wall, like there's a whole like brick wall around his house, but there was like an entrance, is sealed off. And the whole time Roger's like, there's no door, and he's like with this random girl and she just gets kidnapped, so Roger just chills in the car for a hot minute, so you don't see Roger for a while. And when I was watching this movie, clearly I was like, all right, so you have a final girl who's dressed up as Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and she actually looks just like Alice, which is so funny. So I was like, yeah, she's gonna be the final girl, but she like is a terrible final girl. She doesn't do anything. Roger is the best final guy that I've seen in a long time, and he deserves like the GOAT status. This dude does like every single thing that you should do in this movie that everyone's like, why don't you do this? When he sees demons, he's booking it. He tries to save people, but at the same time, he's kind of like, I gotta save myself. And that's what he does. Like he does a lot of things where he just runs. Like there was a part in the house where all the demons are trying to like attack him, and I think her name's Judy is the final girl, and he just books it and just leaps through a window and breaks it, and Judy's still standing like, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, freaking run, woman. Like, what are you doing? And then she like slowly climbs out of the window, and Roger goes back in to save her. And it's like, dude, Roger's already like 4 steps ahead. He's like trying to do all these things to get away from literally all these demons. And they climb over like this brick wall. Roger makes it over first because he just bites the bullet and grabs like this like barbed wire fence, and he just climbs over. Because he's like, screw it, dude, I'm gonna die if I don't. And he does it, and he's on the other side, and Judy's just a pain in the ass, because she's like, oh, my hands. But it's like, bro, who cares? And that's what in my head, I was like, dude, screw Judy, just leave her. Which I thought that's what he was gonna do, but he doesn't. Roger goes back up, lays on her, and pulls her up, and they both fall over, and guess what? they're both saved. And I just thought that was a very interesting thing with this movie is like, Roger literally is the MVP. He does every single thing in a movie correctly for a horror movie, because you know, usually in the horror movies you always have the character, the final girl is usually kind of an idiot where she just kind of stumbles about becoming like safe. Now don't get me wrong, not every final girl's like that, but a lot of them are like that, where they're kind of just stumbling through it and they win because the killer is just an idiot. But in this one, Roger makes it so comedic because he's just doing everything correctly. So to me, I just thought it was just so funny. I don't know why I thought it was so funny, but I did. And I think it's just because I was like, wow, this dude's just doing everything right. Why? And it just blew my mind with how Roger was actually succeeding at, you know, winning in this. So at the end of the day, I really did enjoy A Night of Demons. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5. And it's not because like it wasn't like a deep story. It's literally just kids getting terrorized from a bunch of demons. It's kind of like, I mean, I don't want to compare it, but if I had to, I'd compare it to like Evil Dead, where there is demons in like a cabin and, you know, a bunch of people, like kids or teenagers or young adults, whatever, are trying to survive from these demons throughout the night. So it's kind of like a rip off of Evil Dead in a way. This is just fun. I didn't really have a problem watching this movie. I actually really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Early on it was kind of weak, but once the demons started popping, good stuff. Like I said, there is nudity, so if nudity does bother you in movies, I wouldn't check this one out. There's one scene of nudity and that's about it, but other than that, it's fine. I like the movie. I don't really think about it too much when I watch an 80s horror movie. I usually expect TNA in some aspect. So if it's there, then I'm like, all right, well, it's there, whatever. That's kind of how I look at it. But in general, I really did like this movie. If I had to give it a rating, like I said, 4 out of 5 is a really fun movie. I recommend it to anyone, especially people who don't like horror movies too much. This is a good one. This is a fun one. If you guys have seen Night of Demons, let me know down below. I would love to know if you guys have seen Night of Demons. Who's your favorite character in Night of Demons? Is it Roger? Because I feel like that's probably the best answer is Roger. If it's not, I would love to know who your other ones are. Maybe it's the guy with the mullet, the pig, oink oink. And what other good 80s movies, horror movies, should I check out that are maybe classics, cult classics, or just underrated movies? I'd love to know down below. And last but not least, stay safe, everyone.